Welcome into a new edition of Carps Corner, and coming off a big opening weekend of the NCAA tournament. Obviously, tons of basketball to always talk, but the big news that was breaking Friday, the stuff that kind of spun the world on its head, was Deshaun Watson and where he would ultimately go and where he was going to end up. And Friday afternoon, we found out he was going to Cleveland, and information started leaking out about everything that was going to take to ultimately get him there. But the NFL is undefeated. They have found a way to dominate the calendar like no other sport has in recent memory. And I don't think any other sport really has in the history, of modern sports. The consumption of the NFL being a 365-day process now, that when college basketball has its biggest event on the biggest stage, the opening weekend of March Madness, that somehow the NFL was able to swoop in and cuckle it away and be able to take the eyes off of college basketball, even if it was just for a day, and then really leading into the weekend. And as you see the Monday morning sports stuff come out, you're realizing the fact that, hey, my goodness, you're leading with the NFL, despite the fact that you've got a pretty nice little Sweet 16 that's set up, with Baylor getting knocked off and all of these different things happening. The NFL is owning it, and they found a way to elongate and stretch out this calendar and make free agency, as exciting as basically, what the hot stove used to be like for baseball. No one cares about that now, but they realize quarterbacks, and with quarterback movement, they're the position that can ultimately change franchises, and they want to go to good situations. So you have to always read the tea leaves. Offensive line here, receivers here. Do they have a good defense? What's their organization like? All of these different things matter. And so that is why NFL free agency matters so much. You've got the draft coming up after this. There's just so much stinking going on in the NFL that they've drawn us in a way that we never thought was possible before. I never thought that I'd be this enthralled with NFL free agency and people being traded and signing trades and all these different things. So this is what happens. Now you have guys, Deshaun Watson, basically getting an NBA Supermax style deal, 5-year deal, $230 million, fully guaranteed by the Cleveland Browns. And by the way, $1 million in salary year one. Does two things. Number one, it helps Deshaun Watson, in case he gets suspended, lose about 55 grand a game, as opposed to, however many games he would lose on a $46 million percentage. I mean, so you're talking about a couple $1,000,000 each game should that happen. Now it's going to be relegated to, 50,000 basically per game. So huge difference there. Also, it helps the Cleveland Browns push some of that cap hit into the future. And so they were able to continue to have flexibility and work with things this year. And so those are the two objectives. It was good for both. It was good for Watson, good for good for the Browns. Surprising, that it was that dramatic. And I think that's the Browns doing him a solid in saying this. And like I said, it also helps their cap, but this is a much bigger than that. And this is something that they had to sweeten the pot to Watson with that fully guaranteed deal, giving up 3 first-round picks, a bevy of things to the Houston Texans. Jimmy Haslam comes out and guarantees $230 million. It's the only way it was getting done for Watson. He needed all of the things, everything that has been out there, the offense, everything else that Cleveland's providing, the trading for Amari Cooper, the fact that they were only going to have him have $1 million in salary year one in case there was going to be any other issues. That's the only way that Deshaun Watson was going to come. But in doing that, Jimmy Haslam broke an unspoken code in the NFL. They've never had guaranteed contracts. And nowhere in the NBA or Major League Baseball or in the NHL does it say that you need guaranteed contracts, that you have to have them. The best players started negotiating them in, and that slowly matriculated through the rest of the deals. And because of that, you have guaranteed contracts in those sports. Kirk Cousins did it, handful of years back. Got a 3-year, $84 million deal, fully guaranteed. And since then, he's worked on smaller deals, 2 and 2-year extensions, a 1-year extension here, all fully guaranteed. All right, that's all well and good. We're talking about Kirk Cousins, and those weren't market setting deals that he was throwing out there. And it's been a while, but 5 years, 230 million changes the expectations for guys like Lamar Jackson, with Joe Burrow when he comes up, Justin Herbert, assuming he continues to play well, whenever he's up again. We just saw Aaron Rodgers get 150 million guaranteed in his first 3 years. That was the biggest to date, and this absolutely dwarfs it. And that guy is the two-timing reigning MVP, the guy who's won a Super Bowl and widely considered one of the best. And so while Deshaun Watson's not there, he reset the market. And so Lamar Jackson's loving this. He's going out there next year and talking to his, his ownership group and everybody else. He represents himself. Hey, this is the expectation. This is what the Browns did. They're in our division. And so other owners are not going to be happy with Jimmy Haslam. So what happened with the Browns? They mortgaged their future, not just with picks. So they gave up, a bounty, 3 firsts plus, but also tying themselves to Watson now for 5 years. This is a contract being fully guaranteed. You can't get out of. It's going to be impossible for the Cleveland Browns to make any movement should Deshaun Watson get hurt, struggle mightily, all these other things happen. Like, it's going to be tough for them to be able to navigate around any of it. Number one, they don't have the draft capital. 2, they'll be hurting on cap space. And so, with that albatross sitting there, I think he's going to play well. I'm not worried about the mortgaging of future. The Cleveland Browns looked around, saw Josh Allen sitting out there in the East, saw Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in your division, saw Russell Wilson just go to Denver, Justin Herbert out West, saw Derek Carr still with the Raiders, and with Devontae Adams now that he has, and Pat Mahomes. And so they're thinking, can't get it done with Baker. We have to upgrade this position. And the way they ultimately upgraded it was with Deshaun Watson. Now, a couple different ways you can feel about Deshaun Watson. I'm not going to tell any fan of the NFL, I'm going to tell any Cleveland Browns fan how to feel. Longtime supporters, just people that have had their own personal life experiences. I will tell you the football side of it. Deshaun Watson is an upgrade at quarterback from Baker Mayfield. At his worst, he's probably between 10 and 12 of rankings in the NFL. At his best, he's borderline top 5 or in that top 5 conversation. And he's a pretty young guy. So he's going to continue to have that moving forward. And he's a proven winner. You look at what he did in college. You look at what he's done with the Texans. As that team eroded around him, he still went out there and competed. Now you have to bifurcate that, decouple it, and understand what went off the field. 22 allegations, of sexual assault. And that's real. And there's still civil charges that are going to be pending against him. Criminal charges have been dismissed. Went to a grand jury, and the counts, they didn't even find enough evidence to ultimately bring charges. That's the lowest level of threshold that you're going to have in our legal system. Does that make him guilty or innocent? No, it does not. But they didn't find enough to be able to bring charges with the district attorney. So criminally, unless there's new things that come to light, that part is done. But that doesn't mean that nothing happened. That doesn't mean that Browns fans are going to feel good about this. And I've got a ton of interaction on Twitter, people reaching out to me and saying, hey, gosh, how am I supposed to watch these games with my kids? I'm done being a Browns fan. All of the things out there, that we've seen, and all the stuff that we've endured over the last 20 years of them coming back, we just don't feel good about this anymore. We can handle a lot of things, but we can't handle this. I get it. I get it. Am I here to say that nothing happened in the 22 occurrences? No. If something happened in every one of them, probably not. Somewhere in the middle, reality is going to lie, I would imagine. I know a lot of people who have worked with Deshaun Watson, both men and women, both in college and the NFL, speak very highly of him as a human. Does that mean that he's incapable of doing those things? No, it doesn't. But how should Browns fans feel about this? I know there's a contingent that are going to sit there and hammer the fact that criminally nothing's going to happen. I think he is going to get suspended by the NFL, whether it's 2 games, 4 games, 6 games. I doubt it arises to 8, but I do think there'll be some sort of punishment there levied. Will the Browns be able to overcome that at the start of next season? All of these things you've kind of have to factor in. I do know this in the NFL, and this is really where we are in sports. And it's not my opinion. It's just an observation. The talent trumps all. And the better you are at something, and this is the case even in life too, the better you are at something, the longer a leash you're going to be able to get. And the more leniency you'll be granted. And as soon as you start having success, people will forget about some of the things that happened, the improprieties, some of the injustices, some of the stuff that has happened before. People forget about that. So Deshaun Watson, if he goes out and wins a lot of games, I think most Browns fans, they'll be happy. If he leads them to a Super Bowl, ultimately wins one, I think most of them will look past this. Some people won't, and they're entitled to that. And so the Haslams, they're going to have a little battle on their hands, especially initially with the PR of this. You know, Dee Haslam is very outspoken and she gets in front of things. She talks about things. And this was an organization that also brought in Kareem Hunt. Remember that, right? They signed Kareem Hunt, and a little different maybe because Kareem Hunt's from Cleveland. And so you always give the benefit of the doubt to people that are, you know, of your group, of your geographic group, or whatever it is. When there's commonalities and relationships, you always kind of excuse them away. You do it for family members, you do it for people from your own hometown, friends. And the fact that, you know, Kareem Hunt is from Cleveland, okay, people kind of look at this, hey, it's a one-off incident. And to his credit, there hasn't been anything else that has really happened that has risen to that level since he's been signed by Cleveland. So that's a testament to him. And hopefully he continues to do everything he needs to do in a positive way. But is the product on the field for the Cleveland Browns going to justify everything they're going to have to deal with off? You remember Jimmy Haslam, he's no stranger to controversy. You look at the pilot Flying J stuff, FBI investigations, he's familiar with it. You know, his wife, Dee, I mean, she's understands all of this, and she's very outspoken, and she's just as much involved in some of these decisions as he is. And so she's going to have her opinions on it. And, you know, frankly, she's probably going to have to be a lot of the forward face for this to make sure that it can be smoothed over. And her being a woman plays a large part in that. That's just the reality. It's not my opinion. That's just an observation. And so I anticipate she will be the one that will answer a lot of those questions and talk about the due diligence process and everything that went forward, despite the fact that the Browns didn't interview any of the 22 women and didn't talk to their defense attorney. I'm guessing they probably got as much information from the NFL as they could, talked to people in Houston, found out what they were thinking. But the Cleveland Browns weren't alone in their pursuit of Deshaun Watson. There were multiple other teams that would have died to potentially get him. Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans. And there were also apparently some sleeper teams that we didn't know about. And that makes a lot of sense. So there's an uncomfortability about it if you're a Browns fan. I get it. I get it. The question is, will he now be held to a higher standard on the field because of everything that's come there with him off of it? Will he have to be significantly better because of the baggage that he is going to be bringing? That's a good question. And that's one Browns fans, are you going to look at him and always think like he has to always be a little bit better than you would have expected should none of those things have happened off the field and the allegations not been there? Because that's what they are right now, is their allegations. And not that you can't be suspended for that, and not that the allegations aren't true. But will you hold him to a higher standard because of that? And if he's not great, saying we should have never traded for him at all, it wasn't worth the trouble. And that's real. On to some other things now in the NFL. Some other quarterback news. Big things happening. Matt Stafford leads the Rams to a Super Bowl. By the way, put out a phenomenal commercial on television regarding trading in your old phones, cell phone commercial, one that you've had for 12 years that you really, really loved, but you get upgraded to a new phone that could provide you unbelievable service and be a tremendous year. And that's where you want to go moving forward. Yes. And so in reference to the Lions and the Rams, he did a great job delivering it. But with that, he also gets this 4-year, $160 million deal. It's not all guaranteed. I guarantee you, if this deal would have come out, significantly after, Watsons, and Matt Stafford, he's made a ton of money. He's going to probably go down because he was one of the last to get those super large contracts. As a rookie, he's going to go down as one of the highest earners in NFL history at the time he retires, if not the highest, because of that, because no one's getting these massive rookie deals anymore. So you have to wait before you can kind of earn that $50 million deal. But Matthew Stafford, 4 years, $160 million. Going to tie him essentially to the Rams till he's 38 years old. And maybe he can keep playing after that, assuming he's healthy and he wants to. I think he'll have that ability and he'll be able to go do that should he choose to do so. But big for the Rams, gives them some cap flexibility. It gives them the franchise quarterback that they've been looking for, for the next 5 seasons and probably beyond should Matthew still want to play. But it's big. It's big because it's team friendly. And so when you're trying to re-sign Aaron Donald, something that they're working on right now, which isn't going to be easy. When you're able to bring in, some elite talent, signing of Allen Robinson, for my money, him and Cooper Kupp, they're going to probably be the best receiving duo in the NFL when you have Matt Stafford as your quarterback and what he's going to be able to do. Huge signing there, but they did lose Von Miller. They've lost other pieces. You can't always hold those Super Bowl teams together. Look no further. The Kansas City Chiefs now are having to make difficult decisions about some of their players and ultimately who they're going to choose to keep and letting Tyrann Mathieu walk. You feel like there's a little bit, of an end of an era at some point in Kansas City where they have to begin to retool because you can only make decisions on keeping so many players. Outside of that, it's like, what are you going to do? How are you going to keep all these guys? You can't. It costs too much. But Stafford, big news right there. Super Bowl winning quarterback, NFC West, still stacked with with quarterbacks looking at that for years to come. The Cincinnati Bengals were defeated by the Los Angeles Rams in the Super Bowl this year. Big reason they got there, Joe Burrow. Number one reason they got there, Joe Burrow. The number one asset the Cincinnati Bengals possess, Joe Burrow. They need to protect Joe Burrow. Give credit to Mike Brown and his family that they went out and they spent money in free agency. We'll see where they go in the draft and what they ultimately do there. One of the best right tackles in football, Lyle Collins, longtime, Dallas Cowboy. He's been injured. He's been suspended. He's had some issues. Give him 3 years, $30-ish million to bring him in to help protect Joe Burrow. And the word is on the street, Joe Burrow was intricately involved in the recruiting of Lyle Collins, the recruiting of Ted Karras, Alex Copa, Hayden Hurst, couple of linemen and tight end. These aren't like the big splashy wide receiver signings, but remember, Cincinnati already has all of the wideouts they need. They have Boyd. They have Higgins. They have Chase. They have weapons. They did lose Uzama, but Joe Burrow, his ability to recruit elite free agent talent is going to be imperative, not only because his play on the field depends on it, and especially when they're bringing in offensive linemen, but that allows Cincinnati, which has never been a destination, to be able to go bring high price free agents. They were a team that used to have to overpay to get guys. Now people are lining up because they want to play with Joe Burrow. It's really one of the things that people don't truly fully understand the gravity of. We talk about this. We start talking about free agency and guys signing there, and we see these big dollar deals. Well, there's going to be places where money is similar. Then it starts coming down to facilities, how they treat players. And in Cincinnati, facilities aren't great. Like, they don't take great care of their players as far as operationally with their food, and the training staff and all the support stuff around them. But a lot of times for some of the guys, what's your why? It's another $1 million a year good? Well, that matters. But I'd rather be on a team that when I go into work each and every day and I'm beat up and my ankles hurt, my back hurts, my shoulder, I've got a pec strain. Like, I'm going to try to play through this in week 12 because we have a viable shot to go win the division, to ultimately win the Super Bowl. And that's because of a quarterback like Joe Burrow. When you have an elite signal caller that keeps you in every game. That's why New England guys like to go there. They take a discount. They take care of their players. And they had Tom Brady. Guys want to play with winners. That's why you saw, guys are going to be gravitating towards Los Angeles. Yeah, the sun's good. The weather's nice. Great stadium. It's LA. Matt Stafford. It's a big deal to be able to go play with an elite quarterback and to play in a winning organization. It gets you out of bed in the morning when you're beat up, when you're sick, and when you're tired. And so Joe Burrow, the recruiter, his ability to bring in these free agents, and it's really imperative for him because he needs the offensive lineman. He needed Collins to come in there. He needed Karras to come in there and protect him. He needed Hurst to replace Uzama. They had to rebuild that offensive line. They'll have 3 new starters next year, but his ability to do that in the leadership element that he provides, guys, there's something about Joe Burrow that gravitates players to him. You saw it at Ohio State. You see it the way his teammates at LSU talk about him. And now you're seeing it with the Cincinnati Bengals. There's a subtle confidence, almost an arrogance about him that people love. And like the fact that he's a down-to-earth dude and he resonates with all his teammates, regardless of, ethnicity, geography, where you're from, position you play, upbringing, demographics, all of that stuff. Joe Burrow is relatable. And you see his guy, I want to play with that dude. I want to be a part of this guy, what he's doing and what they're building here. Because, man, he inspires me and he gives me a little more juice, something that I wouldn't normally have. Joe Burrow, the recruiter, is as big and as important as Joe Burrow, ultimately the player. NFL free agency, it's great. Frenzy. And we always often wonder, and this is one thing people look at, and I've kind of even analyzed it as well, is how do you find the best deals for players? If you're a player, how do you maximize your value? Talking to a couple of different teams, see this, you see that, you think you've kind of gauged your market value. And then sometimes when you have gone down the road with a team, you've kind of eliminated a couple other teams and you're locked in, you see deals break. And deals break that maybe that you're thinking, man, that guy maybe is a better player than me, making less than what we've kind of negotiated. Or maybe this guy's on par, or maybe not quite as good as me, or better, but not substantially. And they're getting a massive deal more. So one end of it, the team, they're getting stuck. The other side of it, players, if you're undervalued, you feel like you're getting stuck. It's precisely what happened to Zadarius Smith, former Green Bay Packer, going to the Baltimore Ravens, going back, 4-year, $35 million deal. It's basically negotiated up and ready to sign after the legal tampering period. So this thing was going to move forward. Then all of a sudden, you have the Chandler Jones deal with the Raiders, and you have the Von Miller deal with the Bills. 2 massive deals where it was going to put the dollars per year significantly ahead of Zadarius Smith. And so he felt he was being undervalued. Went back to the Ravens, said, hey, we're going to need some time. We can't sign this. We'll get you another proposal. His agent goes and gives him that proposal. All of a sudden, you look at this like, man, can't do this. It's too much. We like you, Z, but we're not getting you to there. And now all of a sudden you look around and this is what happens in free agency. There may have been 8 to 10 bidders earlier, but as teams start allocating dollars to different places, other guys end up getting signed. All those dollars begin to dry up. And now Zadarius Smith, it's rumored he's talking to Dallas, who got in their own little pickle with some language with Randy Gregory. And language matters. Language matters a lot. His $70 million deal with Dallas was different than his $70 million deal, with Denver, because it doesn't take back any of the clawbacks, for suspensions and drug-related offenses and all this other stuff. So Denver, he's free and clear. Doesn't have to worry about any of those things. But now Dallas needs a pass rusher. And apparently Zadarius Smith is talking with them. We'll see if he'll get a better deal. They know what was out there for Baltimore. They know what the other guys in the market are getting paid. They knew they were offering Randy Gregory, and it was significantly more than Zadarius Smith. Now, Zadarius Smith coming off injury, didn't really play last year, but I know in his mind he has a value. And it's aligning your perceived value in your head with the reality of what a free market capitalistic system, which is what NFL free agency ultimately is, how that's going a lot to align with what your value is with the rest of the team and relative to everything else, what they're ultimately willing to pay you. So we'll see and monitor this over the next couple of days. Where's Zadarius Smith signing? Because I think he's a nice big piece. He's a nice piece that could be added to a number of teams, should the price be right. And I know he wants his price to be high, and he saw Chandler Jones, he saw Von Miller, Randy Gregory, all these deals coming out, and all of a sudden, hey, might be time for me to go back to the drawing board and see if I can get more. Problem is there more to be had? So eventful weekend. That concludes this edition of Carps Corner. We're going to have more for you. We'll get into this NCAA basketball and some different things too. But as long as the NFL and free agency's churning, man, that is dominating sports talk all over the place. So always want to weigh in and try to give you the ultimate truth and what the inside workings are and why some of these things are ultimately happening. Thanks for listening.